It began as an ordinary trip, a solo adventure by a curious young woman looking to escape the routines of life and explore the world. Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old student from Vancouver, Canada, had no idea that her journey would end in one of the most infamous hotels in America, and in a mystery that continues to haunt the internet to this day. Born in 1991 to immigrant parents from Hong Kong, Elisa Lam was intelligent, thoughtful, and deeply introspective. She studied at the University of British Columbia, though she wasn't enrolled at the time of her trip. Like many young people battling internal struggles, she turned to social media to express herself. Her Tumblr blog, titled Etherfields, was a mixture of poetry, personal confessions, artistic photography, and quotes from books and films she loved. Her writing revealed a young woman grappling with the weight of depression and bipolar disorder. She wrote openly about her mental health battles, often documenting her feelings of isolation and hope. In January 2013, Elisa set out on a solo trip along the west coast of the United States. Her stops included San Diego, where she visited the zoo, and Santa Cruz, which she described as beautiful and peaceful. On January 26th, she arrived in Los Angeles and checked into the Cecil Hotel, a place she likely found through budget travel recommendations. The Cecil, with its century-old facade and historic downtown location, seemed like an affordable option. But what Elisa may not have known was the building's dark history. The Cecil Hotel, established in 1924, was once a symbol of glamour. But over the decades, its reputation deteriorated. Located in Skid Row, downtown LA, the hotel became synonymous with tragedy. In the 1930s and 40s, several suicides occurred there. Over the years, violent crimes, overdoses, and other mysterious events piled up. Most notably, 2 serial killers called the Cecil their temporary home: Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker in 1985, and Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist turned killer, in 1991. For decades, the hotel had a grim reputation as a place where people disappeared, died, or simply went mad. Still, Elisa Lam didn't seem to mind. She had plans to explore the city, visit bookstores, and document her experiences. She spoke to her parents daily and kept posting on Tumblr. But soon, things took a strange turn. At first, Elisa was booked into a shared room on the 5th floor of the Cecil, a setup similar to a hostel. But after a few days, she was moved to a private room. Other guests had complained about her erratic behavior. Elisa was reportedly leaving notes on their beds, locking herself in the bathroom, and acting paranoid. Staff described her as friendly, but a bit odd. Nothing too alarming. Then, on January 31st, her parents stopped hearing from her. Elisa had been calling them every day. Now her phone was silent. Concerned, her family called the LAPD and flew to Los Angeles to assist in the search. Police interviewed hotel staff, reviewed surveillance footage, and searched the area. But Elisa had vanished without a trace. For the next 2 weeks, investigators scoured the Cecil Hotel. Police dogs were brought in, but they couldn't pick up her scent past the lobby. No witnesses had seen her leave. Her room remained untouched. With all of her belongings inside, then came the breakthrough. On February 14th, the LAPD released a security video taken from one of the Cecil Hotel's elevators. The footage, time-stamped January 31st, the day Elisa disappeared, was disturbing. In the grainy, black and white footage, Elisa enters the elevator wearing a red hoodie, gray t-shirt, black shorts, and sneakers. She presses several buttons on. The panel then steps to the corner, peeking out as if expecting someone to enter. Her body language is strange. She moves quickly, hides in the elevator, steps out, steps back in, waves her hands in the air as if communicating with someone invisible at one point. She presses herself against the wall, glancing nervously into the hallway. Then she steps out completely. The elevator doors remain open for an unusually long time, and then she's gone. The video went viral almost immediately. Internet users across the globe dissected every frame. They speculated she was being followed, drugged, experiencing a psychotic episode, or even possessed. Some noted the elevator's odd behavior. Why didn't the doors close? Others believed she was playing a game known in Korean urban legends as the elevator game. supposed ritual to access another dimension. Theories exploded across Reddit, YouTube, and online forums, but none of them provided real answers. Weeks, there was no sign of Elisa. Flyers with her face were posted around Los Angeles. Her family remained in the city, desperate for any clue. Then came the complaints. Guests at the Cecil hotel began reporting issues with the water. The pressure was low. The taste was strange. Some even claimed it was dark in color. A maintenance worker was dispatched to check the hotels for rooftop water tanks. On the morning of February 19, 2013, the worker climbed a ladder to the main tank, lifted the heavy metal lid, and looked inside. What he saw would shock the world. Floating face down in the tank was the naked body of Elisa Lam. The hotel was immediately shut down. Guests were evacuated. News media swarmed the scene. Questions erupted. How did she get onto the roof? How did she access the tank, which was usually locked and extremely difficult to open? And why had no one found her sooner? The water tank was drained. Elisa's body was recovered and sent for autopsy. There were no visible signs of trauma, sexual assault, or foul play. Her toxicology report showed traces of her prescription medication consistent with her bipolar diagnosis. But no illegal drugs or alcohol were found, the official cause of death. Accidental drowning, but few believed it was that simple. How could she have reached the tank alone? The rooftop had alarmed doors. The tanks were high and required ladders. She was found naked, but her clothes were floating nearby, coated in a sand-like substance. There was no clear explanation for how she ended up there. Police offered no concrete theory, and the case officially was closed. But the internet wouldn't let go. To this day, the Elisa Lam case remains one of the most bizarre, unsolved mysteries of the internet age. February 19, 2013, it had been nearly 3 weeks since Elisa Lam vanished inside the halls of the Cecil Hotel. Her disappearance had left police, her family, and the internet deeply unsettled. The now infamous elevator footage had gone viral, viewed by millions around the world. There was still no sign of Elisa till a chilling discovery turned the mystery into a global sensation. Complaints from hotel guests started to pour in. They noticed that the water pressure in their rooms had dropped. Some claimed the water was dark in color, had a strange taste, or smelled off. Guests described brushing their teeth and showering in water that tasted metallic. Few reported that black water would drip before running clear. The hotel sent maintenance staff to investigate. Santiago Lopez, a hotel maintenance worker, was assigned to check the rooftop water tanks. The tanks were large, cylindrical metal containers located at the back corner of the hotel's rooftop. These tanks supplied water to the guest rooms, kitchen, and a small coffee shop downstairs. Getting to the tanks wasn't easy. The rooftop was normally locked and only accessible to staff. Anyone trying to get there without permission would trigger an alarm. Santiago took the staff elevator, exited near the top floor, and climbed a narrow staircase that led to a rooftop landing. From there, he used a ladder to reach the tanks. At around 10 a.m., he arrived at the main tank. He noticed the hatch was slightly opening, an unusual sight. He climbed onto the platform, reached for the metal lid, and slid it further open. What he saw would haunt him forever. Inside the dark water was the naked body of a young woman floating face up. The water was murky, but her pale skin and long black hair were unmistakable. Floating nearby were her clothes, a red hoodie, a gray t-shirt, black shorts, and her sneakers. Santiago immediately contacted hotel management, who called 911 within hours. The hotel was shut down. Police arrived, cordoned off the rooftop, and launched a full forensic investigation. Guests were evacuated. News helicopters circled overhead. By afternoon, Elisa Lam's name was back in the headlines, this time with a terrible twist. The question on everyone's mind was the same. How did Elisa Lam get into that tank? Accessing the rooftop required a key or passcode. Any forced entry should have triggered the building's security alarm, but no alarm had gone off. The tanks themselves were over 8 feet tall. Each one was propped up on a concrete base and had heavy industrial-grade lids that were difficult to lift. There were no fixed ladders on the tanks themselves, only side access using portable ladders by staff. For Elisa to have reached the top, opened the lid, climbed inside without being noticed seemed almost impossible. The fire department drained the tank and removed Elisa's body. Her remains were sent to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office for autopsy. The hotel released a brief statement expressing sympathy for the Lamb family, but gave no further details. That silence only made the speculation grow louder. By February 21st, online forums were exploding with theories. How had she gotten past locked doors and silent alarms? Why were her clothes removed? Was someone else involved? Had Elisa jumped in herself, or had someone placed her body there? When the coroner's report was finally released on February 21st, it only deepened the mystery. Official cause of death: accidental drowning. There were no signs of trauma, bruises, or sexual assault. No broken bones. No indication of a struggle. Toxicology results showed traces of her prescription medication, including Wellbutrin and lamotrigine used to treat bipolar disorder. There were no illegal drugs or alcohol in her system. The report also noted Elisa had a history of bipolar disorder and depression, and had previously experienced episodes of psychosis when off her medication. But there was a problem. Lisa's family insisted she had been taking her medications regularly. Her behavior during the trip had seemed mostly normal, if a little anxious. Even hotel staff, though concerned, never reported anything that suggested she was suicidal. And then there was the issue of the clothes. Elisa was found naked, but her red hoodie, t-shirt, black shorts, and underwear were floating nearby. Her phone was never found. Some believed this suggested foul play, while others argued that hypothermia and disorientation could cause a person to undress it. Phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing. Still, the doubts persisted. If Elisa had entered the tank on her own, how had she managed to close the lid behind her? Initial reports claimed the lid was closed when her body was discovered. Later, police said the hatch had been open. The inconsistency raised eyebrows. Furthermore, why didn't the hotel find her sooner? Police had searched the hotel multiple times with sniffer dogs, even checking the rooftop. But no one had looked inside the water tanks. For 19 days, her body remained submerged, while hundreds of guests drank, bathed, and brushed their teeth with contaminated water. Public outrage followed. The Lamb family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel, claiming negligence in security and failure to prevent access to restricted areas. The hotel defended itself, stating that it was impossible to secure every inch of the building. In 2015, the lawsuit was dismissed, with a judge ruling that Elisa's death could not have been reasonably predicted. Still, the public wasn't convinced. Internet detectives, true crime communities, and YouTube channels began dissecting every known detail of the case. They rewatched the elevator video, examined hotel blueprints, interviewed former guests, and speculated about secret passageways, hidden staircases, and possible staff involvement. A dark theory began to take shape. What if Elisa didn't die by accident? What if someone had helped her into that tank and gotten away with it? But there were no witnesses, no fingerprints, no surveillance footage from the rooftop, no clear signs of violence. Just a girl alone in a foreign city found in one of the most inaccessible places in a haunted hotel. Was Elisa Lamb a victim of her own mind, or something far more sinister?
How the world wanted answers.
The discovery of Elisa Lamb's body on February 19, 2013, marked the end of a frantic search, but not the end of the story. In fact, the mystery only deepened. The more people learned, the less sense it all made.
Outlets worldwide covered
the case, and internet forums lit up with questions, doubts, and chilling theories. Even though the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office ruled her death as accidental drowning, few accepted that explanation without skepticism. The rooftop of the Cecil Hotel was supposed to be sealed and alarmed. If anyone tried to access it, without permission, a loud security alert would trigger at the front desk. Yet Elisa had somehow managed to get up there undetected. The only official access was a locked door and a stairway monitored by security. Could she have reached it by climbing out a window or fire escape? But the climb would have been risky, especially for someone in a fragile mental state. Then there was the water tank itself. It was not just difficult to reach, which dangerous. The tank stood on a platform several feet above the rooftop, requiring a ladder to scale. The hatch on top was heavy and difficult to open. Maintenance workers reported that it was closed when they found the body, although this detail later became a point of contradiction. If it had been closed, how did Elisa get inside, and more disturbingly, how did it close behind her? Many argued Elisa couldn't have lifted the hatch on her own. Others believed she may have been alive when she entered the tank but was unable to get out. Her clothes found floating beside her were coated with a gritty sand-like substance. There were no clear signs of trauma or struggle, and no alcohol or recreational drugs were found in her system. She had taken her prescribed medication for bipolar disorder, but toxicology reports showed that she might have skipped or reduced her dosage. This fact fueled another line of speculation. Could she have experienced a manic or psychotic episode? People pointed to her strange behavior in the elevator video. Was it a mental health crisis? But even that explanation didn't answer the bigger question. How did she end up in the tank? Forensic pathologists and investigators remained vague. The autopsy was inconclusive in many areas. The coroner delayed the report, citing complications. When it was finally released, it lacked critical information. There was no explanation of how Elisa physically accessed the tank. No fingerprints were found on the hatch. No time of death was confirmed. There were no eyewitnesses. The inconsistencies and gaps in the report led many to believe there was more to the story, perhaps even a cover-up. Theories began to spiral. One of the earliest and most popular theories was murder. Some suggested Elisa had been followed or attacked by someone who worked at the hotel. After all, it would take insider knowledge to bypass the alarm doors. Others believed a fellow guest might have been involved. Some even suggested the elevator footage had been edited to remove evidence. Then there were the conspiracy theories. Some users online believed Elisa had uncovered something she wasn't supposed to see, perhaps related to the hotel's dark history, or even something more sinister. They claimed her death had all the marks of a ritual or symbolic killing. They pointed out eerie coincidences, a tuberculosis outbreak in Skid Row around the same time as her disappearance. The name of the TB test used to detect the outbreak, Elisa. That coincidence was too strange for many to ignore. Was it just that? Coincidence? Or something bigger? The Cecil Hotel itself became a character in the story. With its grim past, including murders, suicides, and serial killers, many wondered if something dark lingered within its walls. Urban legends and paranormal stories began to spread. People called the place cursed. Some believed Elisa was haunted or possessed. Others thought she had attempted the elevator gema, bizarre online ritual said to open a door to another world. In the elevator gema, a person presses elevator buttons in a specific sequence to summon a supernatural realm. The instructions warn players not to talk to anyone they see during the game, especially a mysterious woman who might enter the elevator. After watching Elisa's strange gestures and her apparent interaction with something unseen, believers of the game were convinced she had played it. Of course, skeptics dismissed all these ideas. They argued that mental illness alone could explain Elisa's actions and eventual death. But even they admitted that the circumstances were unusual. Very few accidental drownings occur in water tanks on sealed rooftops. The lack of surveillance. Footage showing her on the roof, the missing moments from the elevator video, and the vague details in official reports left even logical minds unsettled. Elisa's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Cecil Hotel, claiming negligence. They believed the hotel should have done more to protect their daughter and to secure access to hazardous areas. The case was eventually dismissed, but it reignited public attention on the hotel and its safety practices as investigators closed the case. The internet community refused to. Online detectives combed through police files, video footage, autopsy documents, and hotel blueprints. Reddit threads reached hundreds of thousands of comments. YouTubers created documentaries, reenactments, and analysis videos. Netflix even produced a series on the Cecil Hotel, highlighting Elisa's case as the central mystery. Despite the passage of time, the fascination only grew. The Cecil Hotel, now rebranded and partially closed, became a landmark of urban horror. Tourists came to photograph it. Paranormal investigators claimed to record strange sounds and unexplained energies within its halls. And Elisa Lam, she became more than a victim. She became a symbol of the internet age, of urban isolation, of the unknown. People related to her blog posts, her dreams, and her fears. She was vulnerable yet brave, traveling alone, seeking meaning in the chaos of life. But what she found at the Cecil Hotel was not meaning. It was silence to this day. No one knows exactly what happened on that rooftop, in that tank, or in Elisa's final moments. Maybe no one ever will. The story of Elisa Lam doesn't exist in isolation. It is tangled in a web of urban legends, eerie coincidences. In the disturbing past of the place where she died, the infamous Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Long before Elisa walked through its doors in January 2013, the Cecil had already earned a reputation. Built in 1924, it was once a glamorous destination for travelers in the booming city. But the Great Depression changed everything. The hotel, located near what would become Skid Row, slowly transformed from a respectable lodge into a haven for crime, addiction, and tragedy. By the 1980s, the Cecil was a place few tourists would willingly choose. Many long-term residents lived in rooms just floors away from those passing through on a budget. It was during this time that the hotel earned a chilling nickname, the Suicide Hotel. Between the 1930s and 1960s, at least a dozen documented suicides occurred within its walls. Some guests leapt to their deaths from upper windows, others overdosed, leaving no note. One woman reportedly landed on a pedestrian below when she jumped, killing them both. Another guest, Goldie Osgood, known as the Pigeon Lady of Pershing Square, was found raped and murdered in her room in 1964. Her killer was never caught, but perhaps. The most disturbing fact is that two serial killers called the Cecil Hotel home at least for a time. The most notorious was Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker. In the summer of 1985, Ramirez carried out a series of home invasions, rapes, and murders that terrified Southern California. During his killing spree, Ramirez stayed on the 14th floor of the Cecil. According to reports, he would return to the hotel covered in blood, discarding his clothes in the alley before entering through the back door. No one questioned him. A few years later, Austrian serial killer Jack Unterweger checked into the Cecil. He was a convicted murderer turned journalist, supposedly reformed. But while living at the hotel, he murdered at least 3 sex workers. In Los Angeles, his choice of the Cecil was no coincidence. Believe he deliberately stayed there to emulate Ramirez. Unterweger was eventually convicted and took his own life in prison. The hotel itself seemed to feed on despair. Its decaying hallways and broken elevators were like a living organism that absorbed pain. The more stories came out, the more people believed the Cecil wasn't just haunted, it was cursed. So when Elisa Lam vanished, and was later found dead in a rooftop water tank, it felt too many like another chapter in the building's horrific legacy. But this time, the mystery didn't fade away, exploded online. Elisa's case coincided with the rise of internet sleuthing. True crime had begun its digital renaissance. YouTube channels, Reddit threads, and blogs dedicated to solving real-life mysteries were booming. Her strange elevator footage, shared publicly by the LAPD, became viral fuel for countless theories. Why did she press so many buttons? Why did she appear to hide in the elevator? Why did the door remain open so long? Was she hallucinating, possessed, or being followed? People around the world became obsessed. But it wasn't just curiosity, it was personal. Elisa had a blog on Tumblr where she wrote about her struggles with depression and bipolar disorder, her dreams of traveling, and her love of books and music. Her posts were raw, honest, and relatable. She wasn't a faceless victim. She was someone you could know. A young woman who loved Harry Potter, who felt lonely at times, and who wanted to see the world. That emotional connection drove many to dig deeper into her story. Some believed they were honoring her memory by seeking the truth. Others saw her case as a puzzle to be solved. But the line between investigation and exploitation quickly began to blur. The Cecil Hotel, now infamous again, became a destination for dark tourism. People booked rooms just to say they stayed where Elisa did. Paranormal investigators streamed live from its halls. Ghost hunting YouTubers roamed its staircases in search of evidence. Every inch of the building was photographed, documented, and dissected. One particular room, room 56, where Elisa had stayed, became the most talked about location. The hotel, which had rebranded as Stay on Main, tried to separate itself from its past, but the internet wouldn't let go. The more they tried to erase the history, the more people wanted to uncover it. Even the roof became a pilgrimage spot. Photos and diagrams circulated online, explaining how someone could reach the water tank. People debated whether she could have climbed the maintenance ladder alone. Some visitors claimed they heard footsteps, felt cold spots, or sensed a presence watching them. The myth of Elisa Lam was growing beyond the facts. Artists created fan art, short films, and poetry in her memory. Her name became a hashtag, a symbol, even a meme in some darker corners of the internet. Her story was no longer just a case file. It had become a digital ghost story. But this attention raised ethical questions too. Was it right to turn someone's tragedy into content? Were people truly seeking justice, or just chasing likes and views? Some of Elisa's online followers, who had interacted with her before her death, voiced their discomfort. They felt she had been dehumanized. Her life boiled down to elevator footage and conspiracy videos. Even Elisa's parents, who had sued the hotel and lost, chose not to speak much after the trial. Their silence was loud. It reminded everyone that behind the mystery was a real family who had lost a daughter, a real woman who had dreams, fears, and plans for the future. Still, people couldn't stop asking questions. Why was no CCTV footage ever released of Elisa outside the elevator? Why did hotel staff say she was alone, yet some guests claimed they heard voices in the hallway? Why did the autopsy take so long, and why did it lack so many details? Every time someone thought they had the answer, a new contradiction appeared. Every solution raised more doubt. The truth remained buried under layers of theories, contradictions, and speculation. The only thing everyone agreed on was this: something about the Cecil Hotel felt off. Whether it was the architecture, the location, or the history, there was an energy there that didn't belong. Some called it sadness. Others called it evil, and Elisa Lam had walked right into it. Whether her death was a tragic accident, a mental health crisis, or something more sinister, one fact remained. She became a permanent part of the Cecil's story, final unforgettable chapter in a building that had already seen too much. But even now, years later, her story isn't over, because there's still one part left, the part that no one can explain. The Elisa Lam case was officially closed, but for many, the door never fully shut. Theories persisted, forums buzzed, YouTube videos gathered millions of views. She was no longer just a person. She had become a mystery, a symbol, a haunting presence that lingered over the internet and the hotel that held her final moments. Even though authorities ruled her death accidental, the strangeness around it never let people rest. And maybe it wasn't just about what happened. Maybe it was about how it made people feel. Unsafe, uncertain, reminded that anyone a thoughtful, curious young woman could vanish without explanation in the heart of a city in the years after Elisa's death. The Cecil Hotel tried to clean up its image. It underwent rebranding, briefly operated under the name Stay on Main, and parts of it were closed for renovation. But the past clung to the building like mold on old wallpaper. Tourists continued to visit. Ghost hunters brought their EMF readers. True crime fans took selfies in front of the entrance. The hotel had been home to serial killers Ramirez. The Night Stalker had stayed there in the 1980s, another murderer. Jack Underweger lived there while posing as a journalist. Countless suicides occurred in its rooms and stairwells. One woman had even jumped from a window and landed on a pedestrian below, killing both instantly. The building had a reputation, a magnet for misfortune and misery. It made sense to some that Elisa ended up there, but others still couldn't accept the idea that she died alone by accident. They saw something wrong, something overlooked, and maybe something deliberately hidden. The missing seconds in the elevator video haunted viewers. Why was the footage glitchy? Why did the timecode jump? Some believed it had been edited. But by whom and why? The theories pointed to everything, from hotel staff to unidentified guests to occult rituals and government experiments. Others went further, suggesting supernatural forces cursed ground, or the power of the internet itself shaping events. Despite all the noise, Elisa Lam, the person, remained at the heart of it. She had dreams. She had fears. Her Tumblr blog, Nouvelle Nouveau, painted a picture of a complex, thoughtful, sometimes anxious young woman. She wrote about books, loneliness, hope, and the challenges of mental illness. Her words were poetic sometimes, cryptic, always personal. In a post from January 2013, she wrote, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." That quote spread widely after her death. Some interpreted it as a final message. Others saw it as a cry for help, but maybe it was just what it looked like, a moment of self-reflection from someone trying to find her way. After her disappearance, users scrolled through her blog obsessively.